Hi, everyone, and welcome to our fireside chat on understanding zero trust. On behalf of Gotham Technology Group and Fortinet, I'd like to welcome you all and thank you for joining us today. My name is Crystal, and I'll be your moderator. I'm joined by security experts Peter Newton and Steve Gold. Before we get started, this session will be recorded and distributed after the event. If you have any questions, please utilize the Q&A box and our experts will answer them live. So if there's anything you've been wondering about, or if you have a question about something that comes up during the discussion, our experts would love to weigh in. And with that, I'll turn it over to Peter to get started with some introductions.
Thank you, Crystal. And welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us on this fireside chat around Zero Trust and ZTNA. My name is Peter Newton. I'm a Senior Director of Products and Solutions here at Fortinet. I've been here for more than 6 years, but I've been around Silicon Valley for 20 plus years doing product management and product marketing activities at a variety of companies. At Fortinet, I've been leading up our Zero Trust solution area for several years now, and so this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and I look forward to talking with Steve about it. Steve?
Hey, thanks, Peter, and thanks, everyone. My name is Steve Gold. I'm the Cybersecurity Practice Director for Gotham Technology Group. I also have been in the IT/security industry for a little over 2 decades, worked for a handful of companies that providing solutions around helping organizations stay safe. I spent the last 5 years at the Center for Internet Security, so compliance and basic cybersecurity are near and dear to my heart, which is why Zero Trust is such an important topic that we have today. Looking forward to talking a little bit and hoping to try and help maybe educate or bring some new light to things around Zero Trust. All
Sounds
right.
great.
So, Peter, you and I were chatting last week, and I thought, maybe the best way to start this is let's talk about maybe what Zero Trust is and what Zero Trust isn't. You had given a nice little definition when we talked last time. Would you mind maybe jumping into that?
Sure. So today's session is about Zero Trust and ZTNA, and it's important to note that they're not necessarily the same thing. So Zero Trust is really the philosophy, I like to think of it as. It's a mindset that is looking to control who and what gets accesses to the various resources of the organization. And the name Zero Trust sounds great, but I actually personally think it's improper. It's wrong, because Zero Trust is not about not having any trust, because ultimately you do want to trust the users and devices that are accessing stuff. Zero Trust should have been named, I believe, Zero Implicit Trust, because the idea around Zero Trust is you don't want to grant someone, trust for something and then extend that over to something else. You want to be checking them for every single thing that they're trying to do to ensure that they should have access to that particular resource. So it's an explicit trust model and a zero implicit trust model. Unfortunately, it was named Zero Trust, so that's what we're dealing with, and so that's what we got.
Yeah, and I would agree. And I don't know that anybody wants to base their security program after zero implicit trust, since we tend to make acronyms on everything, and that would just be a zit. So it's funny, you see certain technologies come and go. Back in the day, you and I were chatting about how 10, 20, 30 years ago, when a company would buy maybe their first firewall and they would implement the firewall, as soon as they would implement that firewall, all communication stopped, all traffic stopped, because that firewall was set to not allow anything anywhere. That was, at that point, Zero Trust when you unboxed it, but it then allowed for that zero implicit trust and allowed you to explicitly create what communication you will allow to go back and forth. And I think over the years, it got to be more broad, and more technologies were helping to open up different areas. And now we're kind of coming back around to wrap our arms around this with Zero Trust, using that as the framework to validate and verify each and every user, each and every communication request, regardless of whether they're coming from your office, your home, a coffee shop, or even a remote office location.
Yes, that's a good way to think about it. One of the, I think, right now, when a lot of people think about Zero Trust, one of the first Zero Trust capabilities they think of is ZTNA, or Zero Trust Network Access. Now ZTNA, you're talking about, controlling access to all applications, or all resources, I should say. ZTNA is really focused on those users and the user associated devices accessing applications. And ironically, I think the organization flubbed up again on this one, naming this one, because we talked about zero trust should be zero implicit trust. Well, ZTNA, zero trust network access, ironically, it's not about accessing the network, it's about accessing applications. So it really should have been ZTAA. But again, the name is what it is, because it's independent of the network. By definition, if one of the opening lines of the ZTNA definition talks about no matter what network you're on, as you were saying, if you're at home, if you're in the office, if you're at a coffee shop, you're always getting those same types of checks and authentications and verifications, and not just during and this is an important distinction on traditional firewalling security and zero trust approaches, is, at the firewall, it was checking you on connection. And then if you were an acceptable connection, you were connected, then you had access to the network. With ZTNA, one, you're getting checked for an individual resource, but importantly, it's not just a one-time check, it's continuous check. It's an ongoing verification. It's looking at the behavior of the user. It's looking at the posture of the device, the state of the device. And if any of those metrics should fall out of policy for that particular resource, then a true ZTNA solution will actually break that connection and wait until that policy is met for regranting access to that resource.
Yeah, and I definitely not going to take some time to make this let's beat up on the marketing and the PR people for maybe creating some challenges with acronyms and names and stuff. But there's a lot of confusion out there. I think there's a lot of different vendors that are all trying to, zero trust is a hot topic. As the attacks are becoming more complex, they're happening quicker. They're becoming more effective and more efficient. People are all wrapping their arms around trying to get into this space and trying to build solutions around it. And sometimes people talk about zero trust and they don't necessarily mean zero trust. And I think it's confusing sometimes for those organizations that maybe don't have the depth and breadth of a very, very large IT security team that are simply just trying to get by and do the best thing they can to prepare their organization or protect their organization. So, we talked a little bit about what zero trust is. We also talked a little bit about what it isn't. I think another common misconception is zero trust, or ZTNA, or now ZTAA, and SASE, right? I think that people think about a SASE solution as a zero trust solution, even though really zero trust is a component of SASE.
Yeah, actually, that's another good distinction. And again, I don't want to bash whoever named it. I don't know if it was an analyst or a marketing person. ZTNA is the name now, so that's what we're going to go with. But you're right, there is a lot of confusion around zero trust, what it is, what it isn't, because the way that we work is no longer suitable for the traditional, perimeter-based security that we used to have. We really, with people working everywhere and resources being delivered from the cloud, from private clouds, public clouds, the principles of zero trust are really what's needed to architect security into that type of architecture. Given that that's very important, all the security vendors out there are trying to talk about how their particular solution supports that concept of zero trust. And so you've got, zero trust is extremely broad. There's all kinds of different things that are required to bring zero trust to the entire organization, to the entire cybersecurity platform. And ZTNA is just one of them. But you have many vendors who talk about their little slice, their little contribution to a zero trust, which then unfortunately leads to a bit of confusion as to, well, I had one vendor telling me that what they do is zero trust, and they're over here, and this guy's over here, and they do something else, and they say they're zero trust. What's zero trust? Well,
yeah,
the reality is, they're all zero trust. It's just they're different elements of it, kind of like the blind man and the elephant. One guy thinks it's a snake, one guy thinks it's a tree. Now, you brought up a particular example of confusion around ZTNA and SASE. Now, ZTNA, I think it's great that we chose that as our topic for today's focus of zero trust, because ZTNA tends to be the first project that an organization does when they're looking to bring zero trust principles in. And for many organizations, they get to zero trust through a SASE offering or an SSE offering. And to lay the definitions out here, SASE and SSE are cloud delivered security that includes ZTNA, which is why people are getting their ZTNA there, but it also includes security capabilities like a secure web gateway to protect people as they go to surf the internet when they're not in the office, when they're not behind their office firewall. It also includes CASB to control access to SaaS applications, like a Microsoft 365, a Salesforce, something hosted by another organization that company is using for their applications. So those three things, ZTNA, Secure Web Gateway, and CASB would be an SSE or Security Services Edge solution. You add on SD-WAN for the WAN connection management, and then that becomes a SASE solution. So you see that there's these bundles of cloud delivered products that many people think, oh, well, I need ZTNA, I got to go get SASE or SSE, so therefore SASE and SSE are ZTNA. Well, that's not necessarily the case because there's also standalone ZTNA offerings or other means to bring ZTNA into your organization so you can get it with SASE, but you don't have to. It's kind of circle square and rectangle thing.
Right.
They're all rectangles, but not all are squares. So
Right. Yeah, it's funny, you brought up a good point earlier with a number of different organizations all offering zero trust solutions in their bucket, in their category, in their area of expertise, and sometimes it can be confusing for a customer to understand, well, if I want to implement a zero trust model in my company, which components do I need? Where do they overlap, and where are my gaps? And SASE helps understand that. I think that I think back to when I first started and I got my first apartment, right? I could have bought a couch, and then I could have bought a coffee table, and then I could have bought a dining room table, but I would have had to know what each component, what I wanted in it, how it was going to, where it was going to sit, how big it was going to be. Or I could just go and say, I'll take that set, which is probably what I did in the beginning, because I was looking for something a little bit less expensive and a little bit easier with fewer decisions. But I think as organizations are getting larger, they need to be able to categorize and almost use a framework as a deciding factor on which technologies they're going to implement. Coming from the Center for Internet Security, there have been a lot of people that I've spoke to over the years that will use that, or might use NIST or ISO or any other compliance framework, and they will take the tools and the services that they have and almost highlight it, and say, okay, well, in my identity management area or my access management in NIST, I've got a tool that meets these three things. Or on my CS controls, I've met control 7 and control 8 here, and I haven't met control 5, so now I need a tool for that. And I've always found that seems to be a pretty good starting for organizations to kind of help understand perhaps where they have duplication, but also where they have gaps in their environment.
Yeah, there's lots of great white papers around the internet to talk about zero trust. For folks who want to get the background and the full complete picture, I do recommend both the NIST frameworks for zero trust. That's a great starting point that really sets out a nice structure. Doesn't tell you exactly how to do it, but it does identify the various capabilities that you want to build, and that can help map what vendors are saying about, I say I do the identity portion, I do the network portion, I do the application access portion, and you can really kind of understand how they're playing to each of those. And then the system model, I think, is really useful. They've also have a mapping out there, but one of the things that they've done, which I think is really nice, is they've broken out and added on a maturity element to it. So you can see for each of those parts of zero trust, what is kind of a basic capability all the way up to a fully mature capability. And the reason I think that's really insightful is that as doing zero trust is not a one-time project. It's not, hey, I'm going to buy this product and boom, I'll have zero trust. It's really a journey. It's because it involves changing your mindset of how you're delivering security. That's really going to affect all kinds of different projects, elements, capabilities. And so it's really something that's delivered over a long time, as you really are effectively just bringing more zero trust principles into your cybersecurity. And so understanding that, you're not going to get to, 0 to 60 immediately. You've got to start with a base level on, multiple different areas, and then gradually increase, different areas until you finally get up to a fully mature solution area. So that season model, I think, is really powerful to both communicate that and, provide a level of comfort to say, hey, you don't have to get to the end, by next week. You just need to get going, and then you can gradually add in those zero trust capabilities.
Yeah, and maybe you don't even ever get to 60. There might not be an end, right? Security is a journey. It's not a destination. And I think, you brought that up very well, is the sense that it really requires changes in people and process and technology, and the technology is probably the easiest part of that, right? The people and the process are the challenging areas in there, because every company is trying to run a business. They're either trying to make an impact, they're trying to increase revenue, sometimes they're trying to do both, and getting people to change, getting processes to change, and then getting people to accept those process changes can create challenges. And I think leveraging the tenets that NIST has created, or even the maturity model that CISA has created, gives you at least a North Star to shoot for, and shows you where you are on your path. Gotham, we offer a lot of maybe a no-cost assessment for a company to try and get familiar with our capabilities, to try and separate us from our competition. And a lot of times they're like, all right, well, I'll do this, but you should do it for my entire environment. And then after I clean up everything, then do it again. And that's not really the way this works, right? Because even if we did that, even if we assessed your entire environment, even if I gave you the step-by-step on how to fix every single thing in your Active Directory, every single thing in your cloud, every single thing in your data access policies, right? As soon as you're done, or even while you're doing it, new problems are going to stem up. Your business is always changing, your business is always evolving. So this is the North Star. This is the goal that you are always working towards, but know that you're probably never going to get there. You just want to be significantly further along in the path, with a lot more distance behind you than in front of you.
And the good news is, even as you start down that journey, you're already improving the resilience of your cybersecurity. You're reducing your risk as you're reducing your attack surface. And having someone like Gotham to really help folks along, to show them, hey, this might be your North Star, but let me help you get there. Let me help you understand where the weak points are. Identity is a foundation for all zero trust practices. And so, sure, yeah, getting that Active Directory cleaned up is kind of a foundational thing, and making sure that stays clean is important. ZTNA, if you think about how most organizations do work, it's with applications. So being able to lock down and provide controls around ZTNA is a huge step forward in the whole zero trust approach. One of the things that, I think ZTNA is a great place to start. Fortinet has a really elegant solution where we can convert folks from a VPN access over to a ZTNA access in a very low risk, gradual way. That, to your point of, it's difficult to change, the people and the processes. You can deploy the technology pretty easily. With Fortinet's ZTNA, it's easier and better to get to your application with ZTNA than with VPN. So it's one of those rare instances where you can improve the security at the same time you're improving the user experience. So, when we went to ZTNA, our IT organization would send out an email about every month saying, hey, we've added 2 or 3 or 5 more applications to the ZTNA control process. And so it went from, I had to have a VPN tunnel up to access things, and then gradually, oh, I didn't need the VPN tunnel for these applications. And now, over the year, basically every single application I uses ZTNA. And with ZTNA, I'm able to get to that application faster. From a user standpoint, I can be in working with that application faster than I would with the VPN. But with ZTNA, I'm getting checked for every single session, every single application that I'm launching. My device is being checked to make sure that, it's updated, its firmware's okay, there's no vulnerabilities on the device, because, we're scanning the device for visibility. for, vulnerabilities. And, there's continual checks to make sure that I'm behaving appropriately, that, I'm not logged in at, impossible locations in the, say in the Silicon Valley office and the New York office at the same time. So there's all these checks that are happening, but because it's all happening in the background, it's transparent to the user. So for me, I just get into my application, start working, while that cybersecurity, that the platform that Fortinet offers is taking care of a lot of that complexity and just making it easy for the user.
Yeah, well, I mean, Fortinet's been a very, very long, fantastic partner of Gotham. We've been working with you guys for a long time, and definitely have seen the growth that you've had in this area, which is, it's just been amazing, that the leaps and bounds that you've made, and the simplicity of it, I think, is really what's important. But even your comment there about, that we started with just a couple of applications, and then every, couple of weeks we'd add a few more. That to me, that there's the people and process, right? The technology is there, and you have people going through to ensure that those applications are safe, to ensure that the communication to those applications is safe, to make sure that you do have that ZTNA, ZTAA. Now we have to focus on the people in the process to say, okay, well, if you want to get to one of these 10 applications, go this way. If you want to get up to one of these 10 applications that are not quite ZTNA yet, you're still going to use your legacy VPN. And I imagine there were probably a handful of help desk calls that maybe happened during that deployment process. But I think the education of the users and having them almost bought in to the plan that an organization goes through simplifies the process, probably creates a lot less chatter, a lot less problems, a lot less help desk tickets, if they understand not only where the organization is going, but also how the organization is getting there. And to announce to the users, we are adopting a zero trust methodology. We are going to be implementing a zero trust network access to ensure that accessing our applications is safe. This is going to be a process that takes us 6 months, a year, to ensure that we do it right. You're going to see some things. It helps the organization, and I think even the users understand how they are supposed to do what they're supposed to do, as opposed to just getting an email here and there. I think the education of the organization, outside of the IT, outside of the security area, is of the utmost importance as companies start to implement these new technologies that move the cheese for the user, right? Because nobody ever wants to have their cheese moved, but yeah, cheese is moved all day.
That's absolutely true. And actually, one caveat to that, a recommendation I'd have is, um, be careful with the language used in communicating this. While it's certainly a goal to get to a zero trust mindset and a zero trust implementation, the term zero trust, when we've talked about here, it's confusing for our IT security experts that live and breathe this every day. It's not necessarily as straightforward or black and white for the broader business audience. I mean, there's actually, CEOs and who say, I don't like this zero trust thing. We trust our employees. They're our greatest asset. And, and that's not what zero trust is about. It's not saying we don't trust employees. It's simply saying we're bringing the technology to ensure that the right people are accessing the right assets. And so in those communications out to the broader audience, when you're educating them on the change in process, it might be a good idea to avoid the zero trust terminology and simply refer to it as, we're reducing the risk, we're responding to the threats around ransomware, stolen credentials. And so now we're using a new technology, and instead of firing up your VPN, you simply launch your application. And for the users, when they're in the office, they launch the application like they normally would. At home, now they can launch their application just the same way they would in the office. And while in both locations, that ZTNA activity will be taking place, it will be checking the user and the device prior granting access, the user doesn't necessarily know that. But just from a standpoint of, broad acceptance of the new process, the new technology, how the cheese is moved, I've heard one organization, I think, did cleverly, they called it, we're going to treat the inside like the outside, and have those checks in place in all locations. So it's a little bit a twist in the terminology to make it a little bit easier and more consumable for the general audience.
Yeah, great point, Peter. And if we go back in time, right? I mean, 20, 30 years ago, all there was trust, right? You did trust your employees. You trusted that they were going to do the right thing, that they were going to operate in the best interest of the customer in the organization. And for the most part, they did. But the landscape changed, the threat landscape changed. And as the landscape changed, we needed to move into not just an implicit trust, but a trust but verify. So we were going to say, all right, you're a good person. I'm going to give you this access. And then every now and then I'm going to validate that you should have it and do again, I think to the ever-changing threat landscape that's out there. Now we're in a verify only model and we're verifying and validating on every connection, on every application access, on every website that we want to go to because we have to. This
And
is
on a
not about the
continuous
user.
basis.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
This
we're
is
dealing with, compromised credentials. You don't want a hacker to be able to get access to one thing and then go sideways to, navigate to a different server and application and migrate through the network. You want to be able to catch bad actors and limit either the breadth of their access to resources or the duration of their access to resources. So having that granular access and that ongoing checks and verification, all that, really makes it tougher on those bad actors and reduces the attack surface and reduces that risk that organizations need to now that, we got applications in the clouds, we got applications in multiple sites, we got employees working at home and in the office and in coffee shops. It's really, it's not the 80s where everybody would come into the office and be accessing an application sitting on a mainframe in the back room. That's just not the way we live, and the cybersecurity needs to address that in an easy way to enable employees to do their work, because if done correctly, we trust our employees and they can get to everything they need to get to in order to do their work, and there is no friction for them. What we're doing is we're creating friction for the bad guys so that they can't try to do what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember back in the day, right, when there was the auto theft deterrent product, the club came out, right? The club was that visible deterrent where if a bad guy was looking to try and steal two Buick LeSabres or whatever kind of
Yep.
car you may have, one of them had the club and one of them didn't, which means that getting through the one in the club was going to take that person 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds longer, and it wasn't necessarily worth it. It wasn't just about having the alarm or having the little red blinking light on the dashboard. It was like, I'm going to have a physical, visible deterrent that you're going to have to get through. I remember back in the day, there was a car parked where I grew up in Queens, and it had the club, and it had the alarm, and it had an ignition cutoff, but it also had one of those big collar locks around the steering wheel back when you needed a key to start every single
Oh,
car, and you
right,
couldn't get the key in because you had this big lock there.
right.
And they tried to steal that car for months unsuccessfully because of the defense in depth model that customer, that owner had taken, right? They had created layers of defense.
Uh-huh.
Unfortunately, one day they just showed up with a flatbed and they took the car away so that they could work on it when they wanted to. But it's all about creating the challenges and creating the layers, taking that person, that good person that has the best intentions, and even sometimes protecting them from themselves, protecting them from maybe a password that they've used in the office, that they've also used on a social media, they've used in a shopping app, they've used in another personal app that they've had. You talked about identity. It is one of the most important areas now. Hackers are not hacking in as they traditionally did, they're logging in. They're taking the passwords that they've accumulated over the thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of data breaches over the last couple of decades. And all of those passwords are available. And with common naming conventions of email addresses and people using, the same information they have across multiple platforms because it's easier, it's becoming more and more challenging. So to your point, having all of those layers of defense in place to protect that user from wherever they are to wherever they want to go on whatever device they're using, and ensuring that that connection is either secure or in some cases not allowed. Sometimes that's the safest thing that you can do too, is if a user is using an unprotected device, maybe in an unprotected connection, then maybe you can't access this application.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that ZTNA does. But to your point about it, it's the layers of defense. Now, a full zero trust implementation does require lots of different pieces and parts. And that's one of the ways that I think Fortinet can really help organizations get to zero trust, because we do have an extensive cybersecurity platform where we do have many of the pieces and parts that you need for zero trust. Now, no vendor has everything that they need to do zero trust, but we've got a larger portion than about anyone else. We got our the firewalls, the switches, the access points, the security operations, powered by artificial intelligence. We got all these that are already working together, and then we also have an extensive open ecosystem of third-party vendors. These are other companies that say, hey, Fortinet is, everywhere. We're more than half the firewalls shipped nowadays. So they see us in their customers and say, hey, we don't do firewalls, but we do this other thing that works with firewalls, or other things that work with cybersecurity. And so we do have those integrations with others. So I think as companies look at how they want to do zero trust and how they're going to get to zero trust, identifying a platform that can get them there and can really reduce the effort to get all these pieces and parts to work together, because they've already been engineered and worked on, and the integrations have already taken place. So it makes it a lot easier for someone like Gotham to come in and help them deploy and potentially manage that instance, to give them the zero trust capabilities that they're looking for.
So you're saying that even with my Prime membership, I can't have zero trust delivered to me in the next 4 hours?
Takes a bit more than that. Takes a bit
Yeah,
more.
yeah, I think it does. And I appreciate the nods to Gotham's capabilities, and I go back to kind of a risk-based methodology of that. I think that until you know where you are, you can't figure out where you need to get to, and the prioritization that you need to put into that, to me, is most important. We have a lot of customers that come to us that say, hey, I'd like to get a baseline assessment of my organization, but before I do that, I want to get a pen test. And
Mm-hmm.
okay, I mean, we can do a pen test for you, but the pen test might not expose the highest vulnerability that you have in your organization. It may not expose the largest gap. So to spend time and money sometimes on doing something that is part of a larger security program is going to be the thing that you're going to want to focus on, is focus on that program. And I think that by understanding where a company is, what their business model is, and what their goals are, sometimes even helping them define those goals, allows them to fill in the pieces and parts, or build the platform around zero trust. And if that's a single vendor that they can work with to implement all the pieces and parts, and allow that consolidation, allow that, I hate to use the word single pane of glass, but because every organization has hundreds of systems they use, and that's 100 panes of glass. But to minimize the number of panes of glass, to minimize the amount of training and time that a company needs to go with a platform like Fortinet, I think is really, it makes sense, and it's easier for that customer to consume. But starting off and figuring out where you are in your journey is going to help prioritize where you need to go next, and where you should be focusing your money, where you should be focusing your time, where you should be focusing your resources, as opposed to just opening up the security playbook and saying, okay, well, I know I need to do vulnerability assessments. I know I need to do a penetration test. I know I need an identity solution. You probably need all that. You just may not need it in that order. So I
Yeah,
think
there's more
understanding
than
where you are.
as many times I've had customers come in and talk to us, and they're interested in the latest whiz-bang cybersecurity thing that came out because they just saw a report on it, and they think, hey, I need this, and sometimes when you're talking to them, you think, well, this is kind of like you're looking for the optical scanner for your bedroom safe when your front door is wide open, So
Right.
let's first get a lock on the front door, and then we'll worry about the other layers you need to do to get your security in place. And really having that expert guidance to assess where you are and what's most important, and what should be done first is really helpful. There's a lot of companies that can certainly use that advice.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's really understanding the prioritization and the operationalization of what you're trying to accomplish, right? Everybody wants to get better at security, but I think there's a lot of, I at CIS I worked with Tony Sager, brilliant cybersecurity mind for years, and one of the things that Tony said to me that has always stuck with me is that right now for companies, when they talk to vendors, there's this fog of more. and that there's all of this more technology, more capabilities, more vendors that are out there, and it becomes very confusing for organizations to figure out, well, where do I go? Well, they do this, but this company does this, and this is long lasting and this is fast acting, right? If you're in the supermarket looking for cold medicine, which one do I take? Which one do I go with? Why is this one better than that one? And I think being able to filter that down to a company that provides a comprehensive solution across the identities, across the devices, across the networks, across the data is really where organizations should be looking at, because that's going to really help them get from 0 to 60 or maybe 59 pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think given the complexity of today's cybersecurity challenges, all the many threats that are out there, having that platform of cybersecurity where you are tying in different elements and different capabilities and bringing it all together. And you say that to the minimum number of panes of glass, I think is the only responsible way to deal with cybersecurity in our current environment. And I think there's been a lot of noise recently around the importance of platform. You see, many vendors talking about it, and it's important to recognize the importance of the breadth of a platform, but also the importance of an open ecosystem of a platform, and in some cases the maturity of a platform. Fortinet, we've really been promoting this concept of the platform for many years now. Our founders are still running the company. Fortinet's been around for almost 25 years, and they've been driving this concept of platform for many years now, and that's coupled with our organic development for many of these security capabilities. It's really delivered I believe, the industry's most comprehensive, capable, mature, and as mentioned previously, open platforms with many other vendors who can tie into it to deliver all those capabilities that you are talking about.
Yeah, and Peter, it's interesting. I didn't realize that the founders of Fortinet were still running the company. There's yet another similarity between Gotham and Fortinet. Gotham, our founders started the company 20 plus years ago and still run the company, right? There's no outside influence. There's no one telling us what we have to do. It's the people that started the company for the right reasons are still running the company for the right reasons, which is really, really nice. It's yet another similarity between our two orgs.
It's a huge boon to the continuity, I think, of the vision of the product, and of course the delivery and the evidence of success. We have two founders. One's running R&D, the other one's the CEO. And for a tech company, I think that's a pretty good balance there.
Yeah. We without going into details, the thing that I really love about Gotham. So I've been doing this for a little over 20 years, and Gotham was one of the first partners that I worked with way back in the day when I first started in the industry. And the people that I met with 20 years ago, most of them are still working for Gotham, whether they be on the sales side, whether they be on the engineering side, whether they be on the leadership side. So having that stability and that consistency of a team within a company, I think it's not very familiar now. Many organizations, you see people come into and out of a company, sometimes even in less than 2 years. It used to be 2 to 3, and I think now sometimes it's even less than 2. And an organization sometimes loses its stability with its customers. It's feeling with its customers to make sure that they feel confident in that organization. If every couple of years or every year they're talking to John and then Mary and then Phil and then Tom, and as opposed to talking to the same person.
And that's important, as technologies change. Zero trust is a new thing. So having that trust level with your partner so that, hey, they guided me successfully on this last cybersecurity capability that came up. Now that zero trust is becoming the recognized way to deliver cybersecurity, it's important to have those trusted advisors available to really guide you on how to bring this new philosophy into cybersecurity, and then what are the various elements to start with, and maybe map out hey, we're going to start with, putting in SD-WAN to manage connections, and then we'll move then to maybe we'll start with SASE so we can secure the remote users, and then we'll implement universal ZTNA. So we've got ZTNA not only for the SASE users who, as we mentioned, those folks get it when they sign up for, when they get turned on to the SASE service. And then ZTNA, we can extend that out into the campus perimeter for those folks who are not on the SASE platform, on the SASE POPs. And with Fortinet solution, we have the SASE, we have the ZTNA capabilities that are just built into our universal, our unified agent, and connecting into our operating system for our firewalls. It's not a feature that we license separately, but rather we just enable ZTNA for those folks. And so with this concept of, I need to understand where I'm starting to know where I'm going to go next, and that's going to give me the security I need. Going with a solution that starts with, hey, I'm going to put the firewall in now so I can get the SD-WAN, knowing that that's going to give me the ZTNA 3 steps down the road when I'm rolling out and configuring that capability. So that's just, having that consistency and trust in your partner to know that they'll be able to get you there, walking through the steps of deploying that zero trust.
Yeah, and I think, that's a great point on the deployment of it, right? Where do you start? How do you start? How do you ensure that you're protected, right? Anyone that's been in security for more than a couple of years has always heard that you can't protect what you can't see. So having a plan where you can take a look at, your remote users first, the ones that are probably the riskiest, potentially using home machines, potentially using, internet connections, public, potentially internet connections, open public internet connections, trying to get to applications from different places. It's starting with your highest risk first and trying to mitigate that risk, and then moving into that universal ZTNA where your campuses are also protected, I think is a really, really great plan. And I think understanding, your blast radius, right? Understanding the total scope of both your inside and your outside. I don't know that there's a lot of inside anymore, right? I think COVID helped move a lot of the inside outside, and some companies are trying to pull back on the outside and bring them back in. But I think that having that approach to focus on the outside first and then the inside is really, really important. It's going to provide that staged process, that risk-based methodology of trying to protect all of those endpoints, all of those users, and all of those applications, while, to your point, speeding up access, right? I mean, that's a benefit to the user. A lot of times technology sometimes can impede the number of things a user does, or in some cases, the lack of security will reduce the things a user has to do, right? The more levels of security, sometimes the more steps the user has to go to, right? Do I have to click a button on my phone and do my Face ID, and then I have to click another button to approve this, and then I need to click another button to approve this? You don't want to continue to ask your users to do more and get the same or even get less. You want to give them something back, and speeding up access from wherever they are in the world to wherever they want to get in the world is going to definitely be a benefit.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, with ZTNA, we can really improve that user experience even as we're adding more capabilities and more checks on the user and the device. One of the common questions I get from users, when they're talking about ZTNA, is, we've been using VPN. If we go to ZTNA, can we get rid of our VPN? And surprisingly, I'm a champion of ZTNA, and I think it's great. For many users, the answer is yes, but for some users to access some network capabilities, you'll still need to have some VPN capability resident in the organization. Now, the number of times that gets used is going to go down dramatically, but it's one of those technologies that it's useful. It operates at the network level, not the application level. And so sometimes IT folks need network level access, whereas your general users, they're just using applications. They don't need network level access. So for most users, you can retire the VPN, but for some users, they'll still need to use it. So you still need to have some VPN capability, but the ZTNA will become the predominant method of most users accessing applications and getting their work done. And as you say, it's faster, it's easier. People get to their applications quicker, and it's a better way to work.
Yeah, and what a great point there of, well, just if I go ZTNA, can I get rid of VPN? I think that is one of the challenges and part of that fog of more that happens now where, an organization will be looking into zero trust and, they'll look at Fortinet, they'll look at the top three vendors in that space, and they're going to get different perspectives and they're going to get different answers to their questions. They're going to get different answers to the same question because there's always going to be a little spin. And I think in some cases, some would say, yeah, of course, you don't need a VPN anymore. Everything's going through this secure connection right now. Every remote user, every on-campus user, they're all going through there. But realistically, that's not the case until you can really break into the business processes of how people connect to their applications, what they use them for. You're never going to be able to get to a point where you can just flat out bring out this all-encompassing solution of saying, oh yeah, sure, no problem. Just get rid of all that. And by the way, all that money that you're saving on that, you can use on my product. You can buy more of my product. I think that's some of the challenges that organizations are having now. It's understanding that everything needs to go into a process. Everything needs to have a baseline assessment of where you are, what you're doing today, and where you want to go to make sure that implementing zero trust and perhaps maybe getting rid of your VPN is going to be something you can do either now or later or never.
Well, I think it just becomes one of those, little tools that sits in the background that when you need it, you've got it, but 99% of your users are not going to touch it anymore. And that's a good thing. VPNs provide overly broad access. They potentially could open up if a bad actor is able to log into your network with a VPN, they can go anywhere. And so shifting to a more automatic and transparent secure connection with ZTNA just removes that attack vector, makes it a lot easier for users to get their work done, but it makes it a lot harder for bad actors to do what they're trying to do.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think some of the references that we made earlier, maybe to help people kind of get started, right? Taking a look at the NIST documentation on zero trust, I think is going to be really important. They list a number of tenants in there that are all part of zero trust. So even picking some of those and saying, I'm going to start with this one, or taking a look if you've already got components of zero trust today, taking a look at the system maturity model and understanding a little bit more about maybe where you are in your journey and where you want to go, or maybe shameless plug here, bringing in Gotham to try and do that baseline assessment of your organization and helping to build out that security program or assist in that security program for that organization would be something that would be a good place. I think everybody is going to zero trust. I don't know that we have a choice in the matter, right? So because we still have this, because the threat landscape is increasing so much and the bad guys are getting easier ways to do things and do them at scale, we all have to be more diligent in what we do. And sometimes we have to protect those good people from those good things and make sure that they're protected.
Yeah. Yeah, and speaking of the speed of how threats are increasing, and now you're hearing all about how artificial intelligence is being brought to bear by the bad actors. The good news is, we're also able to incorporate artificial intelligence into how we do these zero trust checks, into how we do these zero trust responses, and so yeah. In today's day and age, it's always changing. We need to make sure that we're mindfully adopting the best mindset for cybersecurity, the best approach to it, and then having that roadmap, the partners to help us get to make progress along that journey so that we have the right protections in place.
Yeah, and I hope that I hope that for those of you that are live listening, or those of you that might be listening at a later date, I hope that we helped educate a little bit on kind of what what zero trust is, what it isn't, differences between zero trust, between ZTNA, between SSE, between SASE, and all of the different 3-letter acronyms and 4-letter acronyms that are out there in the world. Hopefully this was a little helpful to at least, either give you a place to start or give you a path to go further down.
Steve, it's been a pleasure chatting with you today. I hope our guests have all enjoyed the conversation as much as I have.
Now, same thing, Peter here. Always a pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you, Peter and Steve. Thank you for your examples and the outline of what to consider when implementing zero trust security. Thank you everyone for joining us live today or in the future viewing this recording. We hope you found the time well spent. If you have any questions or want additional information after the session, we will be following up and sharing the recording in the event that you'd like to watch again or share it with your colleagues. Thank you again, everyone, and I hope you have a great day.
Thanks.